Greetings and welcome to the Classical Guitar Composers Podcast, episode number 10. I am your host, as always, Chris Hales, and I'd like to thank you very much for joining me today. I have an excellent show for you. I'll be featuring some classical guitar duos today. Always exciting to hear two guitars at the same time. Alright, so it's the 10th episode. Of course, comparing it to the Friday the 13th franchise, the 10th episode there would be Jason X, where they basically had run out of ideas and were like, what could we possibly do to make this 10th movie? Let's do it in outer space. Okay. And somebody signed off on that, said, okay, great idea. Let's do it in outer space. So, today's episode is brought to you from outer space. No, I'm sorry. I'm a little fired up. I'm angry today. Now let me tell you why. It's completely related to guitar. First thing is that dreaded thing that happens to all of us that just sort of brings life to a screeching halt for 2 or 3 weeks, you know. It's like, man, I work on my truck all the time. I have an old truck, and I'm constantly having to feed it parts. So I'm always working on my truck, okay? And then we've been doing some work around the house. I had to go help my father-in-law build this massive swing set. It took a couple of days. Okay, no incidences until I go to flip on my kitchen light switch the other day, and bam, drive my thumbnail right into the wall. Like, somehow I forgot how to aim for the light switch. Cracked my thumbnail. So I imagine that many of you at home listening know how that is. And that's always how it happens, right? It's not like, it's always something stupid. I remember one time, I remember because it was like the last time I broke a nail. I was like, I'd been doing all this work, and then I just lifted up a cardboard box, and it kind of slid in my fingers a little bit. Just ripped one of my nails off, you know, the good part of the nail. So, and then it's like, it makes, you still practice, but it sucks, man. You all know. So that's why I'm complaining to you, because you all understand. At least most of you, I imagine. My wife always makes fun of me, and my kids, because I'm always trying not to break a nail. So what do you do? Do you, when I used to like perform a lot, I would super glue a fake nail onto it, and I hated it, but it was better than having nothing. But these days, I don't really perform much at all. And when I'm going to, I've just been lucky that I haven't broken nails. But now I just wait for it to grow back. I just deal with it till it comes back. I hate putting on fake nails. So yeah, that's one reason I'm angry. Another reason is going clear back when I was studying classical guitar in college. I got that book that every guitarist I know has this book. It's the Villa-Lobos Complete Solo Guitar Works. It's, the one with, it's like yellow and blue, and it's got like foliage on the cover. I've seen that book. Like, who doesn't have that book, honestly? If you don't have that book, you should have that book if you're a guitarist. I love the Villa-Lobos book, man. That's like my go-to. Just, I feel like playing some guitar. I'll pull that book off the shelf, and every piece in there is awesome. That being said, I haven't played every piece in there, but I did the preludes, and then I learned coro, and then I learned the Brazilian suite, which so the preludes I think are pretty easy, and coro, whatever it's called. I think the Brazilian suite is a little bit more difficult than the preludes, and then the 12 etudes are probably the most difficult of the things in that book, and they're kind of all over the place. But here's what I'm getting at, is that I feel like everybody plays some of these pieces at least. So for the etudes, those are the ones that I haven't done a complete study of. I did number 1 and number 7 in college, and then after graduating, I took a stab at number 10. So number 10 is the first piece I have ever given up on. Etude number 10. So this was years ago, but I played it. So my general approach now, that especially these days where I'm not really doing recitals anymore, I don't perform much other than like when I get asked to play at a wedding or something. But that's not to say I don't want to. I just am currently not. Anyway. So, but I generally will try to put together a recital. My goal is to have a recital in my fingers at all times, and I like to have a little bit of each era, like a little bit of classical, romantic, Baroque, or shall I say just Bach. I always try to have a little Bach in there, and some. I always try to keep at least one of my compositions in my fingers too. Anyway. So even when not performing, I try to get a piece to performance level to where I would feel comfortable performing it before I move on from that piece. And etude number 10, I could play it, but I was never like to the point where I was comfortable. I couldn't get through it without making mistakes or just gaffing notes, because that's a hard piece of music, but and so that's the only time I've ever truly like given up on a piece. I one day said, this piece is too hard for me. I'm not going to play it anymore. So there's a confession to you. Anyway, that's not why I'm angry though. That's going back years ago. I have been working on etude number 2, and I have arrived at the same place almost. I haven't discarded it yet, but etude number 2 is killing me. And I feel like everybody and their dog can play etude number 2. I don't hear a lot of people playing 10, but I swear, everyone plays number 2. Anyway, so I'm angry. I'm angry about number 2. But part of it is I just don't have the time to practice that I used to, which sucks. Because I'm someone who enjoys practicing. I like to play my scales, I like to do my technique, and then get into my pieces. And it takes a few hours to get through that. I wish I could spend those few hours every day, but it's not realistic. And so what happens with etude number 2 is I get it, I start getting it up to speed, and then I don't really have a chance to sit down with it, with the metronome, and really like work on it for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. Then I come back and it feels like I'm starting over. So yeah. I don't have the longest fingers, and there's a few parts of that piece that are killing me. Like there's when it goes into the E major arpeggio, and you are up on like the 12th fret, doing like a half bar. I really struggle with that part, and pretty much the whole second page. Anyway, so yeah. I had a goal. I wanted to do all the Villa-Lobos etudes. Well, I've also done number 8. Number 8 is my favorite one. I think number 8 is such a gorgeous little piece. I don't even think of it as an etude. It's just a beautiful piece of music. Yeah. So I've played through some of the other, like I'll open them and just play through them. I like to play through 11, but I've never actually really gotten into it and studied it. But number 11 is cool. That might be the coolest one. Number 11 is awesome. I really like Zenon's recording of that. That's so great. Anyway, so yeah, I've got a broken thumbnail and a piece that's kicking the crap out of me, and I'm angry. So yeah, I'm not happy about it. But this morning, it's a nice Saturday morning in my place and time in outer space. Yes, it's Saturday morning in outer space. I went to the theater last night. I went and saw my friend Jeremy's production of Mamma Mia, and it was very good. I'm going to tell you a funny story. So, like years ago, like 15 years ago, when I was at a pool hall with my friends, with my buddies. You know, we're hanging out playing pool, and there's like me and my kind of group of friends, and then there's like another group that we would sometimes hang out. So we had this, anyway, there's a bunch of us. There was probably like, I don't know, there was a bunch of us together, and then this pool hall's also full of other people, and we're hanging out, shooting some pool, and I went over to the jukebox, and I was like, I'm gonna, put a few quarters in this jukebox, and put something interesting on. Of course, they didn't have any Julian Bream or anything to choose from, but no, they had one Grateful Dead song, and the Grateful Dead, I've maybe mentioned before on this podcast, is my favorite band. I love the Grateful Dead, and the only song they had was Casey Jones, which is okay. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna throw on Casey Jones, and go back play some pool. So anyway, I put my quarters in. I go down. I click on the Grateful Dead, Casey Jones, and freaking Abba Dancing Queen starts playing. And I'm not kidding you. Every head in that pool hall turns and looks toward the jukebox, and I just go, "No, man, no! That's not what I chose. I chose Casey Jones." Everybody's laughing at me, making fun of me, and yeah. I really hit Casey Jones. I did not hit Dancing Queen. I tell you that story to say, fast forward, 15 years later, the company I work for, we were recording tracks for the musical of Mamma Mia. And I played the guitar parts on our tracks. And so I went and I checked out an Abba CD from the library to kind of get the feel of them. And I'm going to tell you something. I like Abba. I really dig Abba, actually. So there's another thing to learn about me. I'm an Abba fan now. And my daughter really likes Abba, so it's kind of fun. We'll listen to them together. So we went to the play last night, and it was pretty cool to hear our tracks and hear those sweet guitars I recorded. My friend Jeremy was the director. He's also who played the keyboards and on our tracks. And then a friend of the show, Parker Robinson, that you all know from episode 8, was also there. Parker was the mix engineer on the show, and he also had a few killer saxophone solos in it. So it was just a big old fun fest, I guess. No, it was very good, and I'm an Abba fan. Yeah. Okay, anything else I want to tell you? You know how Netflix, if you have Netflix and you're watching like a series, and then you watch an episode and then another one, and it's like the opening credit music starts, and it has that little option to skip the opening credits and just get straight into the show. When I watch Stranger Things, I don't hit that button. I watch the opening credits every time. Yeah, there you go. Drives my daughter nuts. She's always like, Okay, today we are featuring, like I said, some guitar duets. But before I get into those, I just wanted to read you a couple of things. I've been getting some emails. I get these once in a while, and they're very nice, and I realized I should maybe start sharing some of these on the show. So this was an email that came back in June from someone named Lance Olivieri. It says, Chris, I enjoy your podcast, and I'm glad that you are out there doing this. Thanks for your energy and enthusiasm. I'll be sending some compositions this summer when I'm finished recording and charting. Thank you. Just some nice words from a listener. Thank you very much, Lance. I really appreciate that. We have one here from a Stephen Brenner. This came in July. This says, just listen to your first podcast on Spotify and really enjoyed it. Looking forward to hearing more episodes. Have one thing to ask, though. Sounded like your composition was heavily influenced by Pierre Bensusan. Is that correct? Regards. That was from Stephen in New Jersey. And I had replied to Stephen, but yeah, I've never heard of Pierre Bensusan. But I did check him out, and it's pretty cool. But he did not influence my composition that I'm aware of, at least. Maybe indirectly, but no. A lot of people ask me, like, if I listen to things like Rodrigo y Gabriel or whatever they're called, or a lot of these kind of pseudo-classical players, and I have nothing against them, but I never do. I don't. I either listen. I like classical music. I listen to a lot of like classical guitar that way, and I also really like a lot of different rock music and stuff like that. But yeah, some of these like in between, I'm not very familiar with. I've never really gotten into them. But thank you for that email, Stephen. I really appreciate it. I've been getting a few of these kind words. I have some more, but they're kind of old. So those are some of the most recent ones. But maybe from now on, I will read emails that people send me on the podcast. And yeah, if you ever have questions for me or want to argue with me about something, send me an email and I'll read it and answer it on the podcast, and we can have some fun. Maybe we can do a segment. You send me your pieces that kick the crap out of you and you have given up on. No, I'm just kidding. Well, you can if you want to. Okay, moving on. So today we are featuring the music of Daniel Ainsworth out of Shreveport, Louisiana. And by the way, now would be the time to pause the podcast and grab yourself an iced tea. You're going to want a nice smooth beverage to go along with this. Okay, you got it? Great. Daniel writes, "Hey, my name is Daniel Ainsworth. I'm a classical guitarist from Shreveport, Louisiana, the director of our Shreveport Classical Guitar Society, and a new listener to your show. I thought I'd send in some duos that I wrote for intermediate guitar for consideration for your podcast. They were written after playing Brouwer's Estudios Sencillos and feeling quite impressed by them. So this is 5 pieces for classical guitar duo. I will also post a link to Daniel's website on the show page at www.classicalguitarcomposers.com. So, this is 5 pieces for classical guitar duo by Daniel Ainsworth. And the movements are titled 1, Momentary, number 2, Perpetual, number 3, Haiku, number 4, Sleepwalk, and number 5, Cautious. And there it is. Thank you, Daniel. I mean this as a total compliment. The second movement of that is very creepy, and I really like it. And Daniel also mentioned that he's planning on performing these publicly in November. So if you are in the Shreveport, Louisiana area, I highly recommend you go and see that. And if you do, please tell him that the Classical Guitar Composers podcast sent you. I stayed a night in Shreveport once. I didn't really get a good feel of it. I mean, I really, really like the South in general, but yeah, we kind of got there, on a drive-through, so late at night, stayed in the hotel, then moved on, but I would really like to go spend some more time in Louisiana. All right, so before we wrap up, a couple more things. The next episode at the very latest will be in October. I'm very excited. I'm planning a special Halloween episode of this podcast, and don't worry, it's not going to be just me talking about horror movies, I promise. I have a fun show planned. So that may be the next show. At the very latest, that'll be the next show. If you have a piece you'd like to get in before then, try to get it to me at least in time to do a September podcast. And then after that, depending on how many submissions are coming in, I really don't want to change the format of the show at all, but I wouldn't mind doing some more episodes, and so I've been doing some thinking. So I might be trying some new things after this Halloween episode, during these slow periods where they will be guitar composition focused. It's always been my goal of this podcast to just play original classical guitar music, but I am considering maybe doing some shows in between where we might look at a classical guitar composition, an old one like a Giuliani piece or something, and look at it from a compositional standpoint, sort of explore the piece that way, maybe. I'm considering it. If that would be of interest to you, please let me know. I sincerely want your feedback on this. I know that many of you would just like to hear more episodes, and so that's a possibility. Also, I know that some of you out there don't have recording equipment, but you've written some guitar music. If you want to send it to me for me to record and feature on the show, you're welcome to do it. I'm not going to guarantee that I will record it, but if your piece is, not too difficult and maybe not too long, and you're okay with being at the mercy of my mistakes, any mistakes I might make, and my interpretation, that's a possibility too. And it may take, if you send me something like that, if you send me a recording, I can throw it right up as soon as I do the episode. But if you do it like that, I'm open to doing something like that, because I know a lot of you. I've had a lot of emails about folks who they have intentions to send me this music, but they haven't recorded it yet, and then I never hear from them. So if you want, that's a thing to consider. But like I said, you'd be at the mercy of my interpretation of your piece, and my mistakes, and also just whenever I can actually find the time to do it. Sometimes it's fun to hear other people play your music. If you haven't had that opportunity, it's kind of fun. And sometimes it's an absolute disaster. I remember once I wrote a wind quintet, and it was a really cool piece. It took runner-up. They were wrong. It should have been first place, but they chose a different piece for the winner. But I got runner-up, and so it was performed at this concert, and so I got the runner-up. The winner got to have it performed, their piece performed by the faculty wind quintet. I got the student wind quintet, and they didn't care. The flautist was excellent. She was awesome. The rest of the wind quintet, they didn't care. They were not interested in playing, so they refused to practice. And then, even like the French horn player, I came to a rehearsal, and they were attempting to sight read it basically, and I didn't even know where to begin with them. But the French horn player kept hitting this wrong note, and I would tell him it's wrong, and he's like, I was playing a D flat, and I finally had to walk over to a piano and sit and pound on a D flat. I'm like, this is a D flat. Oh, Anyway, but I've had other times that have gone really well. I once I wrote a sonata for violin and harpsichord when I was in college, because UVU acquired this harpsichord, and it was awesome. They get this harpsichord, and they had a festival for it, and so they brought in this woman who was an incredible harpsichordist, and she was a specialist, and she played Brandenburg No. 5 by Bach, and she was she could read music with figured bass just easily and stuff. And anyway, they also did this this concert, and they asked me, I think my teacher suggested, my composition teacher at the time, Dr. Martin Pond, was this weird student I have loves this kind of stuff. You should have him feature a piece. So they were like, yeah. So he went to me and was like, you should feature, you should get the sonata performed. So anyway, I did. I got this. I went to one of the best violinists in the orchestra and asked her to do it. And then I went to the best pianist at the school and asked him to do it. And they were awesome. And that was one of the coolest things I've gotten to experience, was getting my sonata performed at this concert. Then and then of course there was the wind quintet that was the opposite. So you never know. But anyway, I am talking the day away here, but it is fun to hear music. Although I've never written a guitar piece that I've heard performed from somebody else. That maybe not as exciting as if you were to write a symphony. But okay, I'm gonna wrap it up with that. I look forward to this Halloween episode, but if you have any pieces you want to send me in the meantime, go ahead and send me that. And until then, I wish you all a great end of summer. And until the next episode, I bid you farewell. And I encourage you, as will I, to keep on plucking.